Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Barrett Louie, part of the marketing team here at RiskIQ. Today, we'll be building out a full investigation starting from an IOC already known as malicious. Before we get started, there are a couple housekeeping notes. First, today's workshop is being recorded. Second, today's session will be interactive. Throughout the workshop, we'll be unmuting lines for questions and conversation. If you have a question while your line is muted, please send them through the questions window in the GoToWebinar control panel. The team will answer as many as we can as we go. Now, let me introduce you to the team. First, Benjamin Powell. Benjamin is RiskIQ's Director of Technical Marketing. He'll be leading today's workshop with our solutions architect, Michael Naples, and Cory Kennedy, RiskIQ's Principal Vulnerability Researcher. And with that, I'll hand it over to Benjamin.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to go through and do some fun things, and I even have some extra use cases. If we have some extra time, we'll jump into some additional investigations. Now, one thing I want to let you know is everything that we're doing right now, it's real stuff. It's not made up. So you don't want to visit these places directly because they're malicious. And with that, if you go there directly, you could potentially infect your machine and potentially infect your organizations. So you want to be very safe. You want to use tools and techniques that are going to allow you to have a buffer between you and the threat actor that we're going to be investigating. So first of all, they don't see that you're looking at them. But if anything is bad, it can't get to your machine because there'll be something in between. So we'll be demonstrating techniques to be able to do that. Give me 1 second. I'm just killing my Outlook. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I'm going to show just a quick 2-minute video to explain what RiskIQ does, because that will save us some time and give us the capability of doing some more hands-on things in this within the products. So give me 1 second. I'm just going to kill this and I'm going to play this video real quick.
What do you get when you get RiskIQ? It's a good question, and we hear it all the time. RiskIQ is the foundation for protecting people and digital technology, customers and clouds, employees and websites, partners and portals, users and apps. Why? Because digital cloud-centric transformation creates a threat landscape that demands relevant, actionable security intelligence. And the best way to get relevant and actionable security intelligence is by having a full view of the global attack surface, your organization, third parties, attackers and their tools, industries, peers, and even geopolitical entities. RiskIQ's attack surface intelligence uncovers threats that really matter, because only RiskIQ can provide real-world observations of you, your adversaries, and everything else on the internet. Our global collection network assembles, graphs, and identifies every stitch of the internet, good and bad, you and others, threats and risk, adversaries, and the whole digital supply chain. With the capability to access direct observations of attacker infrastructure and activity, security teams can analyze, triage, and respond based on relevance to them, and take action more quickly and with more confidence based on factful observations. RiskIQ is the world's only observations-based security intelligence. Threat insights relevant to your attack surface and extended enterprise, so you can focus on threats that matter. And that's what you get when you get RiskIQ. Get started for free at riskiq.com/get-started.
Okay, enough of the fluff and marketing. We're going to get right into it. And so what I want to do real quick is I want to explain the breakdowns of our licensing for PassiveTotal. So if you sign up with a free email account, that's like a Gmail, a Yahoo email, what we do is we don't give you access to all of the data sets. And the reason for that is you're not really vetted. We want to make sure that we actually know that you really work for an organization, because the information that we have in here is supposed to be used for legitimate purposes, and we don't want somebody to abuse those things. So for example, if I log in and I create an account with a free Gmail account, I am not going to see anything on the services. I'm not going to see what ports are open or the banners. So that information is going to be hidden from you. But if I use a corporate email address, we will give you that data set. Okay, so if you use your corporate email, we vet you as like a real organization, a real security professional. We're going to give you additional days of history. So when you do a search, instead of seeing 14 days of history, you're going to see 90 days of history. And generally that's enough to really figure out what's happening and dig into those investigations. But some of the advanced data sets, trackers, components, host pairs, and cookies are available to our enterprise paid customers. Now today we're going to be giving you a promo code. So if you've done a trial in the past, you're probably back to a security professional or community user. If you use the promo code, it will bump you back up to an enterprise level individual where you can see everything, and you'll have unlimited access to the history and all of the data sets for 7 days. And on the bottom of the screen, you'll see the promo code, and it is VRTHW 2021 JARM, because today we're going to be talking about JARM as one of the things that we're going to be investigating. So with that, please, we're going to walk through and explain how to put the promo code in. If you haven't created an account, please do so, because that's going to make it that your investigations, you can really like kick the tires and try things and ask questions. Now, when you think about when you're doing an investigation with the different types of account levels, if I was using the free account and I searched an IP address, I might be able to see the domain, the cert, some open source intelligence, and probably some redacted whois data. This will now give you the capability, if you're using the corporate email, to see a little more information and potentially even some services that are available that you see out there. And if you use the enterprise account, because we have some unique data sets that might show what's coming in and out of every website in the world, that's like the host pairs, that can link into domains and hashes and components and what we see running, the open ports, and you see a lot more. And because of the history, you can see a lot more of those relationships going back in time. So highly encourage you to use the promo code. If you're signing up and you've never used RiskIQ before, and you kick off the trial is going to give you a longer period of time, and you don't need to use the promo code. Now, the traditional data sets, whois, passive DNS, those are like the A records, what IP address responded to a domain, subdomains, open source intelligence, the services, projects, and the advanced data sets are like the little bits of code that track user experience, trackers. There might be like applications that might use some components in there that we can track. For example, if somebody duplicates a website and they use HTTP track, we can tell you, oh, it's the original source was from this other place. The components are what's installed and running, the versions that we see from an outside perspective, looking at those assets. The host pairs, this is the parent-child relationship. So like if you're pulling an image from Instagram and you're sending data for Google Analytics, we'll see all of those interactions. And the cookies that are tracking between websites, we have all those things. Now, for every data set that we create, it's usually because once we publicize something, threat actors change. And because they change, we have to adapt as well on trying to identify them. So this gives us the capability of doing that. Now, here's the breakdown between the number of days that we just talked about. And with the enterprise, you have access to everything, all the information. Now, if you're in a trial or using the enterprise, when you view some of the articles that we're going to go through and talk about, sometimes there's RiskIQ indicators in there. And those are available to the enterprise users. And what those are is that if an article, an open source intelligence article came out, like if somebody else did the research and found it, or RiskIQ did, some of the articles will go through and will find additional information. Like, so if something was published, when our researchers go look at that article, we might look in our system and find a lot more information. And what we'll do is we'll take that original article and add our indicators and our own information to it from our researchers to give you a head start. So instead of you having to go through and do that additional investigation to find those pieces in RiskIQ, we've already done it for you. So we jumpstart your investigation to give you more indicators, more information, so you can take that and leverage it for your environment to maybe block it on your firewall or look to see if there's any indicators internally from those sources. So that's what we're going to highlight today and show you. Now, these advanced data sets are really, really important. So, for example, with GDPR, who has got redacted? And with the redacted who is information, you no longer have the capability of doing some of those links together to be able to put that information there. So this gives us the capability of using other sources of data like SSL certificates with components, facets in there that you can actually search on and find relationships that you normally wouldn't see. So we're going to be demonstrating some of that to show you those capabilities. Now, here it gives a breakdown on the number of queries that we allow per month for these different types of accounts. So you can see how that works with API and things like that. Now, it's a 7-day promo code, remember, and I'll show you where to put it in. So if you go into your browser, if you haven't set up an account, you go to community.riskiq.com/registration. And from here, you can put in that promo code when you create the account. If you've already created your account, you can go to the account settings, and under the profile area of your account settings, there's a promo code area. You click on the little pencil, you paste in, it's case sensitive, this promo code. You paste it in, and that will give you the capability of having enterprise level access for you for 7 days. So you put in the promo code, you click out of there, and all of a sudden you'll see your account jump up. If you're in a trial, remember, you're already at those levels, so it's not going to make any difference. So some of the tools that we're going to be using today in our investigations are RiskIQ PassiveTotal. We're also going to be using Google Safe Browsing Checker to see if a website is being blacklisted or not. We're going to look at URL Scan.io because sometimes we want to see an image of the domain, or look at something like what's contained inside of a script. So we're gonna use those for those types of things, and hybrid analysis to look at their information, because when they sandbox it and execute something, there might be additional types of indicators. For example, it might have been communicating out to a different site once it was detonated. So we want to be able to take those indicators and bring them back into PassiveTotal and do those investigations. So what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to introduce myself, and then I'm going to let everybody introduce their own. They're going to introduce themselves when they get to their slide. So I'm Benjamin Powell. I'm the Director of Technical Marketing here at RiskIQ. I've worked in IT for over 30 years. I ran network operations and security operations at financial institutions, biotech, manufacturing, software development. And then I went over to startups. So this is now my 4th startup, security startup. And one of the fun facts I like to mention is I'm a spearfisherman. I like to spearfish. But in our industry, when I tell people, hey, I spearfish, they don't want to take my emails anymore. But I actually swim in the ocean and catch fish. And this is one of the last fish I caught probably about 2.5, 3 months ago in San Diego. That's where I live. And in my background, you might see some of my spear guns hanging up on the wall. So this was a halibut caught off of Windansea Beach in San Diego. So I'm going to turn this over to Michael now to introduce himself.
Hi, my name is Michael Naples. I'm one of the solutions architects here at RiskIQ, covering mainly the East Coast and the Northeast. My career, I've spent over 20 years in information technology and security, both as a hands-on practitioner as well as a trusted advisor in the more recent years. I've expertise in network systems, endpoint infrastructure, as well as data security. And my fun fact is that I played college baseball, and I was fortunate enough to play for 2 seasons in the Cape Cod Collegiate League. And I know from coaching, I can still throw a 90-mile-an-hour fastball.
I'm never going to let you toss me a ball. I'm going to let you know that right now. Hey, thanks, Michael. Hey, Cory, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Hey, go ahead. You can introduce yourself.
So real quick, I think one thing that'd be kind of cool is if Michael threw a fastball and you try to shoot it with your spear gun, like a pole situation. Like I think we should do that for the.
It would be like that movie Reds. I think I would die. I think I would die.
All right. So I'm Cory Kennedy. I'm one of the principal vulnerability researchers for RiskIQ's threat research team. And so, some of the things that Benjamin was talking about with, we'll take OSINT articles and enrich those or publish original research. That's part of what me and my team do. And so I have experience across both red, as a practitioner, both red, blue, and purple teams, and that's what I'm doing here is I'm focused very heavily on the threat intel side. So I've been a hacker since '87, and KC is in hacker because I'm from Kansas City. And if you guys have not visited setkc.org or been to any sort of security meetup or part of the community at all, you should definitely get involved. SecKC may or may not be having a meeting next Tuesday, so keep that in mind. But one of the things on here is I definitely love Nano. So if any of you guys are text editor fanatics, like I would like to hear how you feel about the Nano comment. And then other than that, like the one thing I'll point out, if you like games, there are about 3 games on this slide alone. So. And it's going to be awesome. One thing that Benjamin left off his slide was that Benjamin's awesome. So, like next time, you should definitely add that too.
Okay. Hey, Cory is a phenomenal researcher. He's done a couple of these workshops with me, and he's going to be showing off his talent when we do the SolarWinds talk. He created a tool that can go through and look for your host names out on the internet, checking every single certificate in the world, something that manually would be so time consuming you'd probably want to not do that. You'd probably want to end yourself if you're going to try to do that. But this is something that Cory, it's his heart and soul, and he has a talent for this, and I'm so grateful that he's here to talk about this. So Cory, thank you for being here. So if we take a look at the next section, so one of the things I do is we publish some of these things. Every single one of these slides you're going to be given, so you're going to have them all. But we also have additional slides that are in the PDF that we're not going to show today. So like, for example, every single data set, I wrote down questions that you should be thinking about. And if you think about that question, that's the data set you should be looking at to answer that question. So that's a whole section for reference that we give out for attending the workshop. Now, if you go to riskiq.com/threat-hunting-resources, you will find other exercises that we've done in the past that we publish there. So we take those things that we've done, those use cases, and we put them online so then you can practice. Now, everything that we're going to show you today, you can leverage this over and over and over again in your own investigations and your own practicing. So if we go through and we do an investigation looking for something in particular, I'm going to show you a way to find the latest one where you can go through and investigate it as well and see what's happening. So just bear that in mind. These are not things that are just one time and it's done. It's something that you can continuously go back and find a new one and then investigate that and see where that takes you. Okay, so with that, I'm going to jump over and talk about JARM. Okay, so if you haven't heard about JARM, JARM is the capability of looking at the TLS, the transport layer security, and fingerprinting that. So think of it like making a hash of that. So what's really cool about this, okay, is that as a system is connecting to a server and it's making that handshake and it's going through the SYN, the SYNAC, the acknowledgement, and it's figuring out the encryption it's going to use and all of those pieces, like what extensions are there, all of those things create unique signatures. And some researchers published some things that, hey, if you did this JARM hashing, and even in your own environment, if you had a big server farm, you could tell if one of your servers wasn't configured the same way. So think of it this way. You might have stuff installed the same way, but you might have forgot and not configured something the same way. So this is a way to check to see, hey, do I have all the extensions there? Do I have everything set up? And is it configured the same way? Because I should get the same hash if it's a duplicate of that other server. And so this was a way for you to quickly go through a huge environment. And these people were at SAP that did this. So think of their environment and be able to fingerprint real quick and say, these are not in norm. These are like out of the norm. These are something that's not right. But from fingerprinting that, they found out that, hey, I could use this and identify things on the internet and say, if I hashed of all these things, I could create something called a JARM hash, a fuzzy hash, and an extension hash. So think of the JARM hash as everything's set up the same. The fuzzy hash is saying, hey, the servers are similar configuration, but based on the TLS version, the cipher negotiation, the response might vary a little bit. And the last one is the extension piece. So when I first saw this, I thought, wow, this is like sliced bread. It's the best thing ever. I'm going to be able to go out there and say, show me this. And it's going to be able to go through our data sets and do this. So RiskIQ went out and started creating these JARM hashes. So when we go to an IP address, we'll start creating these hashes. If there's a cert and we have to negotiate, we start logging these. And so we're going to go through and we're going to do a couple investigations and we're going to look at this. So think of it this way. Even though the JARM hash is the same, that's like from the web server's perspective. But there might be some other stuff that's there that uses the same web server configuration, but it's not exactly 100% identical. So one of the things I want to do was look at like something like Cobalt Strike and say, hey, can I use the JARM hash and just with a single click illuminate every Cobalt Strike server in the world and find it? And with JARM, I have to say the answer is no. Okay, but if I can use the JARM hash and other things that are there, I can say, oh yes, I did find it. So think of it this way: it's one indicator to try to find it, but it's not the only indicator that is needed. There are other indicators that you need. So several points of present that you need to be able to understand. And so that's the first investigation that I'm gonna walk through with you, is looking at that. But before we begin, I want to go through some poll questions. So Barrett, if you can kick off the poll questions, let's go through and do that, and then we're going to go through a couple little slides to say how we collect data, and then we're going to jump right into the first example. So Barrett, can you kick those off?
That's good. Yep, here we go.
Okay, so the first question, what area of the organization do you work for? And the reason why I asked this is that depending on if you're an incident responder, SOC, pen tester, vuln management, in management, a threat investigator, I can change the perspective of how I present it. So I just like to know who's there, so we can change it up to match the audience that we have. Okay, so we have 18% incident responders, 8% vuln management, 20% SOC, 52% threat analysts, awesome, and pen testers, cool. So Awesome. You're going to love what we're going to do. And for the threat analysts and the vuln people and all of you, you're going to love what Cory's tool does. Okay, the next one. Okay, what type of PassiveTotal account are you using? The free email, the corporate, and the paid. The reason is because if you're, I want to make sure that you understand, which data set you're going to get, how long, and if there's any issues with what you're seeing on the screen. Okay, 13% are free accounts. Highly recommend you to get a corporate account. There's no charge, and if you need to transfer your free account to a corporate account, we can move all your history over as well if you need that. 57% are corporate email, awesome, and 30% are paid accounts. Great. Okay, the next one. Do you use SolarWinds? It's really important because what we're going to show today, you might not have done to see if you're compromised. So we're going to show you how to really check to see if you're compromised, whether it was externally facing or only internally facing. Okay, 42% yes, 58% no. Okay, that's good. So for the 42%, we're recording this, so when we're done, I'm going to put it up online. So if you need to share this with your team, or if you have questions, you need help, please reach out to us. Okay. Okay, next one. Did you determine if you were compromised? Yes or no? Okay. So we have about 60% of you said that you determined if you're compromised, and 40% no, you haven't done it. Okay. Okay, next one. Are you still using SolarWinds? It's a big question. A lot of people we've talked to, they've moved on to other products because of what happened. Okay, so 45% are still yes, 55% are no. Okay. Okay, next question. Do you need assistance determining if you were breached? If you do, please let us know. We can help. Okay. And 3%, if you need help, just give us send a message in the chat, and we'll take you down your information and we'll work with you. Okay.
And that concludes the polls for today, Benjamin.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to move on to the next one. So I'm going to quickly go through and explain how we gather this data because it's an important piece. We don't rely on feeds where we're taking data from other sources. We're gathering it ourselves. And because we gathered it ourselves, we're able to understand the context of how we gathered it and the relationships between the data that we get. And with that, we mentioned that we're the only observation-based threat intelligence because we're actually seeing the direct observations. And because of that, we understand exactly what's happening. So you have to think of the way that we collect data is because of the way that threat actors might block us. So for example, if we came from our own data center and we went out there and we collected data, threat actor can just do some filtering and say, don't let this range of IP address come to my site. And then we wouldn't see it. So we have to actually interact with the internet like a real user and kind of like the threat actor would as well. So we have to come from different countries. So for example, a threat actor might be targeting a certain region. And with that, they look at the IP address, geolocate it, and only make the content show up for that geolocation. So we actually have to come through 150 different countries, talking to all the different domains around the world and IP addresses. We figure out which port's open, when it changed, when something was, when we saw it and when we stopped seeing it, so we can actually see you were vulnerable here and you fixed it here. So we can actually show you when it changed, whether for yourself or for a customer or supplier or partner. We can show you that because this data is all publicly available. It's anybody on the internet can see it. And we have to also source from different IP ranges. So for example, somebody might be targeting a mobile devices. So they might only look for mobile IP ranges or commercial or residential. So we actually source from all these places. And we have to imitate all the popular browsers and devices and applications. So I like to say, we act like your parents on the internet, the intended victim. Woo, that looks great. Let me see it. But we don't do it all from one connection. We might have 5 or 6 different virtual users go there and gather bits and pieces. We bring that data back and we put it together and understand the full aspect of what's happening. So we go over the entire IPv4 space. So we're able to simulate like a real user. We'll scroll a little bit, we'll click. We might even do a query from a search engine, keep session, present cookies, all those things. And we save that full document object model. And because of that, we're able to pull things out. We can get the links, the console messages, the cookies, the headers, the dependent requests, and the files that are associated with it. And we have them all. And then we use that information to build our data sets and collect things together. And this is what Cory uses to do his research and figure out, oh, if I have this and this, and we look for this, that means it's this. That means that, oh, it's this component that's installed. Or we can do these checks and understand it's this version running on this thing. So it's because of all this data that we get. We do over 2 billion HTTP requests a day. So some people go, well, I can do this. Yeah, you could potentially do it, but for the scale and the breadth of what we do, you can't. We track millions of components, certs, cookies. We have over 157 billion relationships mapped out, and they change daily. So we're able to understand this and see it. Okay. So if you start off with a single piece of malware, something bad, we can say, oh, that IP address, that was coming from this IP, and there's a cert associated with it, and that cert's associated with this domain, and there's this tracker. And we do this thing called infrastructure chaining, where we build it all out to give you that full picture. So you have the complete understanding of how everything links together with other domains and other things. And so as we go through, we call it pivoting through the data sets, you build this relationship out. Now, like I mentioned and Cory mentioned, we also want to help the community out. And so we read the same things that you read. And if somebody makes a publication or an announcement about something, we look at it. Because the only way that we're going to fight these adversaries, it's a team. And we all have to work together. And that's why we do these workshops. We're teaching you how to fish so you can go out and do it on your own. So when that alert comes in and you have to do your investigation, you have a little experience before you go out there and hit the road. So when somebody publishes these open source intelligence articles, Cory's team takes those and looks at them and says, okay, that's great. They found these things. Let's look at those same things inside of RiskIQ and understand what we see based upon this information. And they go through and they add information to that published article. Okay, and these are those enterprise indicators that they add, and that extra information because they're experts at looking at this to be able to understand what's happening. So they take that article, and when they publish extra things. So like if you looked at that article and go, oh, this kind of affects us. Well, I need to go into RiskIQ and I need to see the whole big picture because, you know, who knows if they did their investigation using RiskIQ and they might not have all this information. So Cory's team goes through and does this and maps it all out. So then when you read the article from us, the same article that was published someplace else, these extra indicators are available to start you off right there. So you don't have to go spend half a day figuring this out on your own. It's already done for you. Okay, am I saying that correctly, Cory? Okay, keep me honest.
Yes.
Okay, I just want you to keep me honest. So as this thing comes in, all these things link together. We see the first time we saw it and the last time we saw it, and we track it over time. So when you look at that history, we can go back, over 10 years and show you how things change. So that map of the internet, we see it on a daily basis and how it's changed over time. So we can go look at a specific period of time and see exactly how it was and how it's evolved over time. So as this data comes in, we capture it, and then we're doing, we see over 250,000 new domain resolutions a day, over 5.5 million new host resolutions, 106 billion plus unique DNS records. We do over 2 billion web requests. We look at over 300,000 new ports. But one thing that you don't see inside of PassiveTotal is that we actually look at over 300 mobile app stores. So when you think of mobile app stores, you might think of Google and Apple, but there are ones like, if you looked at like Sony, they might link to the real app stores, or there's other ones that might copy those apps and make them available. You can take them there directly from them instead of linking to the real authorized app stores. Well, we take those, we sandbox them, we look at them, and we understand them. And we'll be publishing some a mobile app landscape report. I think it's this week, Barrett. Is that right?
Yes, yep, that launched this week and is available and up on the site, and we can drop it into handouts here as well.
Perfect. So that's something that's there that we also have. So that's also the research looks at, not just websites, but also the mobile apps. So as this information comes in, the data scientists, the machine learning, the researchers, threat intelligence people, they look at it and they go, oh, we found this. Now let's make it to scale. This is how we determine this for this research, put it in production. So the data scientists will make these algorithms as the data comes in to classify this stuff. And then that goes into all the different data sets that we have. But this gives us the capability we also have the capability of going back in time. So if you think of your own organizations, if somebody says, hey, we saw this event come in, and it's in our SIM or inside Splunk, hey, we need to monitor this. Well, most of the time you can create a new event to say, alert me if it happens again, but you really can't go back in time and roll that forward. But with RiskIQ, we can do that with our data sets. So it's like having a time machine. So we're like with the Doc Brown DeLorean with the flux capacitor. So what we have is the capability that if somebody finds something like, hey, this base 64 encoded cookie name, it's something that we need to track. So then they'll create this thing, and then what happens is we can take yesterday's data set, okay, and we can say, hey, we already have yesterday's data set that everybody's using, but we've collected the stuff for today that we haven't merged in yet. Okay, when we merge it in, go through the data that when we merge it and pull out this new unique identifier and classify it going back to the beginning of time and make that today's aggregate that everyone's going to see and use. So if we find something, we can go back in time and find those new relationships and link them all together that you couldn't do before. Okay, so that's unique, and that's because of these direct observations. So when we overlay this on how we do things, we constantly get better every day, every time. And when the threat actor changes, and we find out how they changed, we roll that back in, go back to the beginning of time, and then find all the other stuff that we didn't know that existed and link it together and illuminate their infrastructure so we can take it down. So that gives us the capability to look at your security posture, your security controls and policies, your modeling, and how you're monitoring and your security investigations. So when you look at the cyber kill chain, everything that we do is outside the firewall. We're looking at what's exposed. The things that you do on the inside that you normally do and you have controls over, we don't play there, but we tie into that data. So if you're using Splunk, if you're using CrowdStrike, for example, those initial indicators or things that you see, we can link those to our data and bring those back in to find new indicators. But because of that visibility that we have outside, it gives us the capability that when somebody's on the deep and dark web and they're talking about attacking you or seeing what's happening, we see that. When they purchase the domain name that's typo squatting you, but it's not active yet, we can see it. And then once it is weaponized and maybe it has the email capability and those things, we can take it down before it's affecting you or your customers or your business. So we can help prevent this stuff. So we usually see things about 1 to 3 days before it's live. So just imagine that if you have that early warning that something's going to happen 3 days before it occurs. And if you had your whole team working to take it down, you could do it. Now, as these things happen and you whack them all, we have the capability that when we see it pop up on another place, we can immediately do it again. And so we call that tenacious, where, hey, we took it down on this side, it's now on this new one, we automatically start taking care of that for you. So as it comes back again, we do it. And the way that we do it is that we all play on the same battlefield. So that's the good thing. And we all have to play by the same rules. The internet works a certain way. Logs are a certain way. Data, all those signals that are out there. But the signals are only as good as if there's collection. And the same internally to your own networks. So you need to make sure that you have collection mechanisms in place to collect your logs. Timestamp it with NTP so you know that all of them are the same. So when you try to piece it together, you have that information to understand what was happening inside of your four walls. And now that we have remote workforces because of COVID and everyone's at home, you need to think about how you're collecting that data at the endpoint to bring that in, like with maybe endpoint protection or something, to be able to give you that capability when you need to search for something to say, who touched this? Who went here? Who was accessing this? Did anybody do this? You'll be able to see that information. So it's really important for that. So if we look at a threat actor and a target, and so we have a threat actor in Brazil, the target's in Canada. From them going on the internet, you know, the IP, the net block, autonomous system, internet service provider. As they create their email, we can see their language, we can see all the information about the date timestamp, so we can know kind of when they're working and what's happening. When they send it, we get all the transit IPs and all the information that's with that. And when it gets to the end user, there might be an HTML email where it phones home so they can fingerprint the machine. All those things are capable of being discovered and seen. And that's kind of what we're doing, but we're grabbing the passive DNS, the WHOIS records, the search, the trackers, the relationships, like what's happening on the domains and websites, the host details, the cookies, the hashes, open source intelligence, the full document object model, the headers, console logs, ports, exposed services. But with that, you have to remember, from just seeing it one time doesn't mean that it's bad, unless it's from like a known bad already. But you really need multiple points of proof to really determine if something's bad. So generally about 3. We always say about 3. And if you have 3 things that are suspicious, then you probably go, oh, no, that's bad. So you just need to make sure that you're doing that. And so as we go through and we talk about these things and the related infrastructure and all that, it's really important to think about that everything, there's gaps. So if you're not monitoring something, or something turns off, or the log overwrites, those are gaps. And with some of these SolarWinds things that were happening, they were targeting on the cadence of when the log rotations were happening. And so as the logs would rotate and that was no longer there, then they would do something and wait till they rotate again. So you couldn't really track and correlate things together. That's some of the investigation things that were published. So it's really important to understand the techniques, and procedures that these threat actors are doing and change things up. It's like if you're being tailed and then the person goes, every so often I'm doing this crazy Ivan where I make a different turn and see what happens. So we need to think that as well now, because these are the techniques that the threat actors are doing. and they know what we're doing because they've been entrenched in our networks, and they monitor for a while, and then they make their attack against us, exploiting our weaknesses with what we're doing because we have limited budgets and time. Okay, so just bear that in mind as we go through this. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some queries that I'm going to put into the chat so you can open up these things as well, and we can talk this, and we're going to go through this use case that we talked about. Okay, so give me a quick second. I am going to the chat section, and I'm going to put in a couple links so we can talk about this, and then we are going to do some examples. Okay, so you can open up all these in a different tab, and then I will walk through them with you, and we'll talk about them. And then everything that we're doing is going to be given to you as well. So you'll have these, and it's recorded, so you will be able to do them again for friends and family. Okay. Okay. So JARM, it's awesome. I love it, but don't rely upon it solely. It's another point of proof. Think of it that way. And we need multiple to really determine if something's good or bad. Some individuals over at SAP created this thing. It's awesome to be able to fingerprint the TLS, and with that you get a signature. And what we talked about, there's 3 different types. There's the JARM hash, which is identical. So same type of encryption, the way it connected, all those things. But when you look at web servers, for example, there might be default configured web servers. And if they're default configured web servers from the manufacturer and everyone did the same, yeah, they might look the same, but they might not function the same. But this hash might be the same. So you have to bear that in mind. And one of the things that they talked about was they gave some examples inside of here, like TrickBot, Metasploit, Cobalt Strike. And when I saw this, I was so excited because when this was published, we were starting to implement this in our crawling infrastructure to gather this data and bring it in. And I thought, oh, I can't wait till we've fingerprinted everything at least once or twice. I'll be able to illuminate all this stuff and show it off at this workshop that we're doing. And when I went through and I started querying this, I go, oh, that's not Cobalt Strike. Oh, that is. The next one is. That's not. Oh, here's another one that is. And it was hit and miss. It wasn't the silver bullet that took it out every single time. But it did find them, but it found a bunch of other stuff as well. So it was a lot of legwork to go through and say, okay, my fishing net caught all this fish, but it caught some squid, it caught some clams, it caught a turtle and a shark. So I need to pull out those so I can get the fish I want. So it does catch it, but it catches a bunch of other stuff as well. Okay, so you can't rely 100% on it, but they are accurate. Okay, so what I wanted to do was I wanted to go through and do some examples where I can say, let's look for a few things and we can play with it, but bear in mind it's only one point of proof and you need multiple. So if I look at this and say, hey, this hash is the JARM hash is the same, but I also see that this component is installed, and I also see that there's this certificate or there's this particular cookie or something else there, then I can get a better fingerprint, and that gives me more accurate information to really identify if something is Cobalt Strike or TrickBot or Metasploit or something else. So it's not one and done, okay? So what I want to do is the one that we looked at, components Cobalt Strike. So let me show you how I did that, just so you can see where I started from. So I'm going to open up a tab, and I'm going to bring this here, and I'm going to use the classic PT. So over on the right-hand side, you might see new PT or classic PT. So I'm going to use the classic PT. And the reason for that, it gives me the capability of really defining what I'm searching for and how I'm doing it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for a component, and I'm going to look for components where the RiskIQ research team has fingerprinted and said, hey, these are Cobalt Strike. So all the stuff that's showing up here are Cobalt Strike, and there's 6,000 of them that have been identified. So if you notice, it shows up on this one where it's these IPs, but there's also some host names, and that has 0. But if I go back and click on it, sometimes it refreshes it, brings the data in. So sometimes it shows up as 0, but it's not, because it's a big query, and sometimes it doesn't run right away. So by me clicking on it, it will kick it off again, and we'll see in a second. It's an internal error because everyone's doing it. But just because it's 0 doesn't mean it's 0. Click on it anyway, just to make sure that it wasn't something that wasn't loaded when you first went there. Okay, so I'll let that go for a second. I'm going to click on this one, and we're gonna see it. Okay, so here's a list of IP addresses, and JARMs are only associated with the IP address. Okay, so when you look at something, the domain might be temporarily associated with that IP, but we're looking at that IP address. Domains can change. You can have dynamic DNS, so that domain might be associated with an IP that is a certain way, but then it's now in another box, and it's the same domain name, but the hardware and the server might be different. So just bear that in mind. So what I did was I went through and I selected an IP address. So the 156 IP address, it's the 4th one down. So there's 2 different ways you can open up something inside of PassiveTotal. We call this pivoting. I can right click and open another tab. That's the preferred method that I like. And the reason for that is if I do an investigation, you might go down a path, a branch, and it dead ends. And then you have to go back to the trunk and go down another branch. So if I do it this way, I can go back to a tab. I can also come up to bookmarks in Chrome and say bookmark all tabs and put them into a folder. And then I save that investigation. If I go back, I can open all those bookmarks at once, and it'll open up all those tabs and all those queries for me. So it's a little efficient. Now, I can also come in here, and if I click on it, that will run the query, and it will keep the bookmark where I can click on it, but it will be a very long bookmark, and it's kind of hard to keep track of. And it doesn't save that. If I bookmark this, I just get that query. I don't get that the breadcrumbs that are associated with it. So that's why I like to do the tab method. But either way will work. Okay. So what I did was I ran that query, and inside of here, if I looked at components, I see Cobalt Strike here, command and control server. Okay. Now over here there was no trackers, so we didn't talk to this one to get the JARM file. So I went, oh, okay, that's not a good example. So if I went back to the list, I found one that was .25, and that was the one that I gave everybody. So inside of here, I have one where the component will show, hey, this is Cobalt Strike, okay, and I see them all. And then the trackers, you'll see the fuzzy hash. That means, think of it, remember there was 3 concentric circles. The JARM hash, which is the longest one, is the tightest one. Then you have the fuzzy hash, which is a little bit bigger net. And then you have the extension hash, was just looking at extensions, which is huge. Okay, so if I'm looking at just this JARM hash and I right click and I open in another tab, okay, that's this, I get down that there's 28,000 Cobalt Strike hashes. So you go 28,000, but that's a huge net. So if we went through and we did our investigation of it, we would end up with about 6,000 because we're fingerprinting other components. So that's how big of a net it was. So I wanted to show this to you, and I thought it was going to be like the silver bullet that we're going to go through and say, let's illuminate every Google server that's the mail server. Let's go illuminate everything that's this, everything that's that, but it wasn't. So this is just another arrow in your quiver to use to cast that net and collect all that, but then you have to go through and do the investigation on those things. Or it's a way to look at your own environment, your own servers, And if you have, let's say, 6 servers that are all supposed to be running the exact same version of the website, you can use the JARM hash and look at your own stuff and see they should be the same. And if they're not, then you have it's not right. Yes.
We have a question. How
Sure.
are the JARM hashes related to JA3 and JA3S hashes?
That's a great one. I'm not, Cory, do you know?
Yeah, at a high level, it's the same logic, but J3 is looking really at the session itself and hashing it. So let me do this. Let me put together a resource and an answer that's a little bit better for you, and I'll toss it in chat.
Okay.
That's a very good question, by the way. Because specifically through, when you're hunting, those hashes obviously, will give you, what you're hunting for. That JARM hash may not also lead you down the same path where JA3 hash would. So that's a very, very good question.
Yeah. So I thought this was gonna be the smoking gun, and I was a little disappointed, but then I found out, hey, it did cast the net and catch them, but then you had to go use other mechanisms to filter out some stuff, which then made it good, because from everything on the internet down to 28,000, that's pretty good. And then when we went through even more, 6,000. So we were able to identify it to 6,000. So if we look at any IP address, we should start seeing JARM hashes associated with. So as we go there and we're fingerprinting them, we're also creating those hashes in there. So you'll start seeing those in your investigations. But that was the example I wanted to show for that. So you can start using them to collect that net and start identifying those things that you want to bucket and look at from that perspective. But remember that if I go back and we have 28,000 here, if I use the JARM extension and I open that up another tab, it should be even more. So 98,000 here. And if I look at the extension one and I look at this one, another tab, we're at 96,000. So it's huge. So those are large amounts of results that come back. But it will collect them all. There's 6,000 in there that we've identified as Cobalt Strike. So just bear that in mind. So what I want to do is I want to go through and do like a role play and do a real investigation with SolarWinds. And so with that, I want to spend time. If there's questions that come up, please put them in the chat. Barrett or myself or Cory will interrupt us and say, hey, here's a question. What about this? What about that? We want to make sure that this is really interactive. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my slides real quick just to put the scenario up. And then
Hey, Benjamin, sorry, before you jump on, we had a question about how you would reduce this large JARM collection and reduce to the smaller Cobalt Strike collection.
We're coming out with something very soon, which we're calling Super Search, where you'll be able to say, look for this, then do this, then look at this, and give me the results. And you will see when Cory uses the tool that he's going to be showing, it's using our API and doing the same functionality, where he's looking at like every single certificate in the world, going back to the beginning of time and saying, look for host names that are in my local DNS server and tell me if they appear on the internet. So he's going to be looking at the full set of certs, looking for specific things, looking to see if certain components are there, doing all these iterative searches on them, spidering out and getting the results. So that will be in our product in a future date. I can't give the exact date. I don't want to give anything away, but it's coming, and it's demonstratable right now in the API, and that's what Cory is going to show.
And on the heels of that one is another question: are the Cobalt Strike servers in the list all malicious?
No, because Cobalt Strike can be used by red teams. So you might have your Cobalt Strike server out there, or you might be, using a service that might have a Cobalt Strike that you can use to red team yourself or something. So it doesn't mean that they're all malicious, but we've identified the instance of Cobalt Strike there. Cory, keep me honest. If I say anything wrong, please keep me honest.
Oh, Benjamin, right now I'm being a bad listener because I'm responding to chat. So
Okay, no problem. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to go through and talk about the SolarWinds attack, and the reason for this is I've personally talked to several organizations that had SolarWinds. Their SolarWinds wasn't exposed publicly, and they thought because of that they're fine. And the answer is no, you're not. And they've patched since then, but you don't know if you were attacked prior to patching, and you didn't know you were attacked, and there might be some malicious stuff now in your environment that you're not aware of that you're going to be popped on another day. So I want to walk through this scenario, and we're going to do this thing where Michael's going to be the new hire. So in this one, I'm the CEO, and I've hired Michael to run my threat team, all of the incident responders, and all the threat investigators. And it's his first day at work. And he really hasn't spent any time with the team because he was just hired. And the CEO goes, hey, I just heard about the SolarWinds breach. What is it? And hey, we work for Intertech. Do we even use SolarWinds? I'm the CEO. I don't know what we use. And are we potentially affected? Were we compromised? And Michael will have his laptop, and he has access to PassiveTotal, and he's going to start answering these questions. And he doesn't have any knowledge of the internal environment. So we're going to show you how you can use the tool to start answering these types of questions and be able to get answers that are factual and accurate right away. Okay. So Michael, are you there?
Yep.
Okay. So Michael, we need to make you presenter. So give me a second. I'm going to make you presenter. And Michael, while you're doing these things, I am going to, give me 1 second. I'm just bringing up the URLs so I can paste those in for the people that are here. We're going to put down SolarWinds. Okay, so I pasted them all in. So Michael, let's go through and let's do the role play.
Sure.
Okay. So hey, Michael, thank you for joining the team. It's your first day on the job. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
I'm concerned because I heard this thing on the news. Everyone's talking about it, that there's a SolarWinds breach. What's the SolarWinds breach? Can you fill me in? Because I don't know what if we need to worry about it or not.
Sure. So, the SolarWinds breach was something that was reported by FireEye back in December. That's an attack on the supply chain against SolarWinds, stepping back to early in 2020. And it consisted of attackers breaching an update server for SolarWinds and ultimately weaponizing an update that pushed out to all of their customers. So utilizing.
So do you have anything that you can send me that I can read about it or understand what's occurring?
Sure. I could use our tool here, PassiveTotal, and going into the threat intel portal here, put in SolarWinds as the search criteria, okay. And we're coming up with the articles here. So looking at the main thing that I just mentioned to you with regards to numerous organizations being compromised by the supply chain attack, we can go into this article here and look more into it and go directly, more specifically, into the public indicators. So now this will give us, folks that are found by the trackers and Google Analytics accounts, as well as the cookie names that we'd be looking for within each of those environments that were affected, as well as the components that were affected in each
so
of those.
Let me stop you for a second. So that's everybody in the world, but hey, was Intertech affected? Do we have SolarWinds? Do you even know?
Absolutely.
Can you tell me, or do you need to talk to the team?
Nope.
Okay, tell me.
I can search for it right now. So I'm putting in the search criteria here for intertech.com.
Okay.
And we can look here. We can see in these resolutions here, we can see everything that comes back to us. And then if we come over to the components, as we just looked at on the previous page in that article,
okay,
we can see here. So now, if I just expand this a little larger, so we're looking at a little bit bigger of a data set.
Okay. So I see that we use Amazon, CloudFront, okay, Facebook for ads, yep.
If we search in this page for SolarWinds, we could see here that this version of SolarWinds that's here, and we look here and we open up a link in a new tab here.
I do remember that they mentioned in December that they were launching a SolarWinds server. Okay.
Right. So as we look now to what we have just got, now we're looking at monitor.intertech.com within the PassiveTotal tool. Okay. And we can actually see here what we have that's affected.
Okay.
All right.
So is this exposed on the internet?
So as we can see here that it is in fact running SolarWinds. Okay. And then if we come here and we go to and browse to it, we can actually see that we're getting the login page publicly available on the internet for our monitor.intertech.com.
Okay, let me stop you. So I know that I signed off on something that we bought a bunch of modules. There was like virtual machine, there was looking at our network, it was monitoring our servers, it was doing patch management. We bought all the modules for SolarWinds. Do those have like the keys to the castle in them?
In fact, they do. Every single thing within your enterprise environment is affected by this.
So
and has administrative privileges.
Should this be where anyone can get a login to log into the server? Is that best?
Absolutely not. The best practices for this should be that this shouldn't be available from the internet at all, even to hit a logon page. It should be only available via dedicated VPN, as well as some sort of jump box infrastructure, to where nobody that is not a part of the organization with a validated VPN connection can even see the login page.
Okay, so let me ask you this. So when you go talk to the team, when we get done with this meeting, can you make sure that this is rectified and made so it's not accessible to every single person in the world?
Absolutely.
Okay, and then if this is out there, that's bad. But how do we know if we were compromised or not? So like, even is this version compromised that we're running, or is it capable of being compromised?
It absolutely is capable of being compromised. Who knows what even previous versions that were there before.
But is this exact version running there? Is that one that is known that it can be popped?
The one right previous to this is one that's known to be popped, so it's likely that the code is still there for the one that was popped, and you don't know at what point you actually were. However, we do have another tool. RiskIQ has a tool that can go ahead and look for this Sunburst hunter there can go ahead and search for these.
Okay, so
to see if there are any certificates out there that have any of your internal names.
Okay, so I know that the article that I read talked about FireEye, and they said, hey, a cursor, a way of telling if you were compromised or not is that the host names of your systems, your internal systems, started to appear in certificates out on the internet, and that was a way for you to determine if you saw that your like .local host name that was our naming convention, if that was on a box out on the internet, that's an indicator that we were compromised because they were able to get into us. How can we check? Can we check inside of this interface?
No, we can't check inside of this particular interface, but Cory, who's with us today, has the ability to utilize his tool to go ahead and check to see if there are actual internal host names within certificates out on the public internet.
Okay, so that's great. So now you, what's the next step? What do we need to do?
So the next step, I believe, should we hand it over to Cory?
Yeah. So I'm going to stop the role play now, and we're gonna talk about this real quick. So first of all, everybody on this call, you need to check your own stuff to make sure SolarWinds is not internet accessible. Shouldn't be. Has the keys of the castle. Somebody gets in, they have access to your stuff, and it's not going to throw any red flags because it's the place where you monitor and make changes. Okay, so it needs to be an internal system. Okay, it needs to only be facing internal. You go in, and from the inside you access it, but not from the outside. The next step is you need to go to your DNS server. So if you had your SolarWinds and it's not externally facing, that's one checkbox. Great. But what happens is the SolarWinds server would call home, get updates, get information, can communicate to the bad guy and bring those commands in and run things internally. So the next thing for you to do is to take the information that you have in your internal DNS, all of those host names, dump them to a text file, and you need to check every single certificate in the world and verify that your host names did not appear in those certificates. So for all the people that have SolarWinds, if you didn't check every certificate in the world, you didn't check to see if you're compromised or not. And you now need to do what we're going to show you. So this is really important. So Cory, if you can, let me make you presenter real quick, just to make your life easier.
All right.
Okay. So I'm going to make.
Well, let's make it.
Go ahead.
Let's make it harder, so it's very fun to work through. All
okay.
right.
So I've now made Cory presenter. Now you can share your screen. And what we're going to do now is we're going to actually show you the steps that you're going to need to do, the tool that you need to use, how it's used. So, for example, when you sign up for RiskIQ, you get API queries. And you can run API queries against PassiveTotal, and you can get data back. So Cory created a script to take a single name, multiple names, and be able to run it and to show you if you got hits. And then once you get those hits, if you really want to investigate, you can take that information and go back into the user interface and look at it and see, and then start investigating from there. But you'll be able to find out if your host name appeared outside. Now, if you had a host name called, testserver.local, yeah, that name might appear and it might be a false positive. But if you had a naming convention that was very specific for your organization, you're less likely to have that naming convention be the same as somebody else. So just bear that in mind, okay, as we go through. So Cory, I'm going to turn it over to you. Please go through, explain what you did, why you did it, and how this really helps the world. So go ahead.
All right. Well, thank you. Real quick, I did want to, I forgot to send Benjamin this updated slide, but the one thing I just want to point out here, I'm definitely not the only one on our team. And I would encourage you to take a screenshot, or we can make this available, but these are Twitter accounts for people on our team. The second one down is Jonathan, and Jonathan was on our team, and Jonathan passed away earlier, late last month. And so his research, and it's a gigantic loss to our team. And but Jonathan's historical research and his work on this team is valuable and relevant. And I would encourage you to make sure you go look at his account for sure. So with that said, just jumping right into it. Just here's the disclaimer slide, so I can make sure that I put this up here. One of the things that's important to note is this tool is an open source tool, and I'll go into the intricacies of that tool. But just keep this in mind. You are interacting with the data, but you're also using an open source tool that you can work on, I can work on, and so just keep that in mind.
So can I just say one thing? So
yes.
Cory created this tool on his own. It's not It's not managed by RiskIQ. He's a threat investigator at RiskIQ, but he built this on his own. So this is something that he's given back to the community out of the goodness of his heart. And the disclaimer is because he did it on his own. The company didn't do it. And so that's why that's there. But it's with our data, with his knowledge, and with our blessing that he created this tool. But this was something that he did on his own because he saw a way to solve this problem for the world quickly and to make your life easier. Okay, so.
Yeah, thanks, Benjamin. And yep, like box checked with a disclaimer. So like if you guys have any questions about that side of it, for sure. And really the motivation for creating this was to, because I prior to, just my history, if you guys remember the earlier slide, I was a cyber defender. I answered these questions of, how, like, are we impacted by this? And our data set is incredible. Like there is so much to extract and learn from it. But as a defender and as somebody who already has other tools in the arsenal I just need the data about our environment quickly. And so the pairing between this tool and the interface, the web interface, they work together really well. So really what I'm gonna cover, I'm gonna show you exactly just how to install it, how to set it up, which is very, very quick. And then give you some use cases of just walking through and searching for SSL certificates based on your internal host names, based on your external host names, really any keyword that you want to use related to your environment, you can search on, and the way the search is structured, it will start and look at SSL certificates, and then what it finds from there, like a SHA-1 value for a certificate, it will then go look at that and then say what hosts are associated with this, and then continue the process of identification of, hey, what hosts and resolutions, what common names are associated with this, and then ultimately what web components exist on these specific to SolarWinds components. And I'll show you how to set that up, and really you can configure that with versioning and stuff like that. So that's really what we're going to do here. This link is a short link to take you to the GitHub page. So we're just gonna start there. So I'm gonna jump right in.
And what I'll do, Cory, is as this is going, I will start putting those links in there to make everybody's life a little bit easier. Okay, great.
So if you click that link, I promise it takes you here, okay? And this is the GitHub page, repository page for this project. And there are two branches, and this is important. So one supports MISP. So if you are using MISP, and I'm going to cover how to use that, I broke these out in case you don't need MISP or you don't use it. You don't have to use it. You don't have to clone that. So if you do use MISP, it is a little bit different, but that is not overall functionality. So if you're not familiar with how to pull this, I'll just show you very quickly. So you copy this link and you go over to your terminal and you just get clone and you paste the repository in, if your paste works. All right, so I already have that, and let me just show you what that is going to do. All that does is it goes out to the website, pulls down that code, and then it will drop it in a folder like this. Okay, so you have a folder on your wherever you were in your terminal. It's going to put a folder called riskiq.sunburst.hunter. Okay, and the way this is structured, images and the README. This is stuff that is on the website, so you can ignore this. Output of your searches will live here in the output directory. The whitelist file is important because this is where the sun list is where you would put the components that you're looking for. Okay, so you can just type them exactly like that, line by, just separated by a new line. And then a whitelist are things you don't want to search for, right? I don't want to go look and see what certificates 0.0. I don't care. Some of that data will get just commingled with these searches if you have, if you have other certificates. So you can configure this however you see fit, and it will go use this and look. So to install, if you guys are not familiar with installation, it does have some requirements that this project does have some requirements it needs to operate. So you would go into your directory with the project, and then you would just pip install -r requirements. And what that's going to do, I will show you what lives in there. That's going to take and install these libraries. And really, this is just so the program can operate, right? Request makes the call to our platform. Prompt toolkit you'll see in a second. PyMisp is for the MISP support, and then Glob and Pathlib are a couple other libraries just to process and give you back the data. So the first thing that you need to do for the setup, once you have this installed, is if you don't have MISP, you will see these fields here, and you can just ignore them. You don't have to even fill those out, but you do have to go into configure your RiskIQ account here and put in your API key there, and then save that file.
Let me just hold for 1 second. So if you go into your account settings, under the profile, you'll see API.
Yes.
And there's a user API and there's an organizational API. So if you're an enterprise customer, if you use the organizational API, that goes off of the entire organization's API account. If you use your local one, it's your individual API account. And Cory, don't click on it, but you can show it, because if you click on it, they're going to see your code. So you can go into it, just show where it is, but don't click on it. Yeah.
What, is that wrong? Should I not do that, Benjamin?
I don't want people to go and start running these queries using our API.
Right.
But this is where
right there, you just push those buttons and it's going to reveal that information that you need.
Yeah.
Okay. So with that said, that's all you need to do to set this up. Okay. From there, the way you run this is you just type Python and then riskiq.sunburst. I'm going to use the MISP version, so I'm going to include that, and then you press enter, and it's going to give you this. I mean, we should take a second and just bath in the 80s glory of this software, because
you need
I just like
members only jacket and Cobra Kai shirt. Fine.
Right. I need an animation like a DeLorean flying in or something. All right, so I'm just going to go through some use cases.
So
right
let me
now.
ask you the use case. So like one of them would be like, hey, I have a single domain, I want to check it. You can do that. But then if you had a list of domains, like if you dumped your DNS, that's the other one that people would want to be able to see how to do.
Yep. Okay. So yeah, and you can just see here the first option is keyword, and so it's going to go search the SSL certificate data for that keyword or the host name that you want to search for. So for this demonstration, I'm going to use a domain that I know was part of all of the impacted publicly impacted hosts here, and this domain is also an internal domain, but I'm going to show you a dot local and a dot. There's a few other domains here that internal domains that you'll see. So you just do number one, and then you just put in your search terms. So I'm going to use sysmon.curo.com, and you just press enter. And that is going to initiate that search. And it processes and then tells you, hey, this is where I'm going to go. This is where I'm putting the output. If you want to sit there and watch the output, you can definitely go do that by just going to the directory and you can just sit there and, well, if you put the right one in. Sorry, I need to minimize that. And this is just going to show as it's working. You can just sit there and watch it. But you can see right here, when a component is found, when it has a hit on from that certificate search, when there's a host that leverages that certificate with a SolarWinds Orion component associated with it, it alerts you and then logs that. And so to make it a little bit easier to grok, I'll show you kind of what that looks like. So like I said, you can go to the way that's structured. It sticks all of that output into the way it tells you within the application, but what it does is it will put it in that directory .json as the same exact search.json. Anytime that there's a hit in here, it will indicate it as an entry in the JSON file. So that is the quickest way to get feedback if you have any of your components from your whitelist that are in your environment. It will alert you in the app, and it will also log that finding.
Hey, Cory, can you take one of the results, and then show it in PT to show, hey, we found it now, and if I want to look in PassiveTotal now, look at one of these results, how can I do it?
Yeah, sure. So I'll tell you what, let's just use this certificate SHA value here.
Okay.
And so this is above where this was found is going to be within the exact area of the finding. So that was the certificate. Here are the results. Here are the components associated with that. So let me actually grab the right one here. So you just copy that SHA value.
Okay.
Okay, and then you hop over to PassiveTotal, and let me just open a new tab here. And you can just paste that in there and pick SSL certificate SHA-1, and then just push the go button. Okay, and then from here you can expand this, and you can see right away, that was our search, right? You can see that SolarWinds is right in one of the alternate names. And the infrastructure, if you go ahead and click on that, and then hop over to components, what you're going to see is the exact finding. Okay, so this is the keyword search and the one-off searches. They are, I would say, they are no faster than using the interface. The power of my app really exists in being able to upload multiples and then really capture that JSON for you to do something else with. And I'll give you an example of doing something else with. So
for the onesie twosies, you could use the interface and look for those things, looking for the common name and things like that to find those hits. So you can do that today. But if you had 1,000, 2,000 different domains that you needed to check, it could take you a long, long time to be able to do that. If you had 10,000.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yes.
So one of the folks are asking if you could paste that SHA value in the chat so they can follow along with you, I guess.
Sure.
Yeah, sure. Sure. Let me go find it. The chat, that is.
So you can copy. So, and Cory, copy your query. Just copy your query from the browser bar of the cert. One up, the tab up. Yeah. So if you just copy that, that will be easier for them. So they just click on that and they go right into the query. Yeah.
Okay.
And thank you for asking questions. This is live, interactive. We want to make sure that if you have a question, speak up. This is what we're here.
Or you can Slack it to me and I'll do it.
Yeah, please. Like I'm sorry, I couldn't see the way the control panel was. I couldn't see chat.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good point, Benjamin. I would, if anything comes up at all, please ask. All right, so now I want to go and I want to upload. I have a file that has all. I've done exactly what Benjamin said. I've dumped all our DNS. I know exactly the list of domain. I know exactly the list of resources. I want to go see what components are on there. See if we have any SolarWinds Orion, and ask and answer that question that the boss was asking. So he said, "Got it, boss," and here's the answer.
So this
And
is
so
what,
back to our,
so if I found my local host name in a certificate out on the internet, that's the indicator that says, hey, the bad guy was communicating with my internal machines from that place, right?
yeah, so that's here, I'll actually start with that. So part of the other part of the motivation was to be able to take these detection opportunities in the original FireEye report and be able to create something to answer that question quickly, quite frankly. So what Benjamin is hitting on right now is this right here. IP scan history shows IP switching between default Win-asterisk host names and victims host names. And so and this was the jump off point, and other research would show there are certificates that were generated with host names, internal host names, right? So if and the behavior there was not the traditional win dash whatever or whatever the host that was compromised was using, they're very, very specific. So so let's just kind of hop back in there. So back to our directory of Sunburst Hunter. One of the files that I've left is called sample_file, and this is the file that you would use to put those internal host names or put your host names in. Okay, just same exact thing, new line separated. And I have done that with our example. I've called it mydomains.txt. Okay, so what you do is
that list real quick of the my domains before you run, just so they can see it.
Yeah, sure. So my domains has parentpay.local, securevideo.local, and this Keanu.local. Now these three are all of this is from the original source of when Team 7, I think. I'll have to keep myself honest there. These are from the original set of 123 or 7 or whatever it was, decoded DGAs that came out where Cisco was identified from Kansas City. There was USD 353 identified, KCPL, Kansas City Power and Light was in there, and they included a lot of, I would say there were 30% in what you consider non-routable domains in there, so .local or stuff like that, stuff that wasn't just regular external facing domains. So that's exactly what we're going to do. I'm going to go upload that file. So the way you do that, you just pick number 2 and then enter your file name. And what you just need to do here is just type the file name itself, mydomains.txt. Okay, and it goes and it reads that file. And it is going to do that exact thing that we did before. And so if you want to sit there and watch it, you can by how I showed you over there, or you could just go over to your text editor, or you can go to however you like to manage your, looking at files, and you can just go look and see, yep, that captured some data, and it just broke on one of the results. So this error here, what this error means is this file just tried to read a new line that didn't exist. So my domains has that in there. That this is a known bug with this, by the way, that I just need to go fix. Or anybody who wants to go get clone and fix that for me, you're more than welcome. But it just tried to run a search on a null result, and it puked, obviously. So it did complete. It was able to get through these 3. So let's go check out the results for parent pay. And just right away, what we see is there was a SSL certificate containing this number-pc.parentpay.local. So this was a certificate that was issued, and this time frame is also hyper specific to when this was identified. So with it from the FireEye report.
So let me ask you. So if I was an organization,
yep,
and I found that certificate out there with my name, so now I need to get my internal team up and running to say, we need to go investigate what traffic was going to this place, and we need to start doing some triage and see what we need to do.
Yes, and so one last thing I'll show you. One of the things that this does is when it completes, it spits out a sample of some of the findings of what it did find. So these are the last. It goes and tails the last file and says, oh, here's some things I found, just to kind of give you an example there. So with that said, we're back to parent pay. And I want to go look at this certificate for parent pay and kind of do a little bit more investigation there. So I'm going to hop back over to PT and I'll paste this in the search as well. So actually same thing, like that is the cert, but I'll go ahead and just validate that, right? But this is the cert. If we expand that, we see that, this is the common name matches our output. Hop over to infrastructure and then look at components. And what's very interesting about this set of components, so this is an indicator that this set of components, coupled with the date of the finding and the internal host name in the certificate, are indicators that this needs to be investigated. And it is, this was a DGA decoded domain from the Team 7 team that we know that this was compromised. So the reason this does not alert directly that there was a SolarWinds finding is because there was no direct SolarWinds component. So what's important here is if you know the set of components, or if you have something very specific in your environment, you say, hey, I want to go look at these components within this environment, you can control that through your Sun list.
But the big thing is that if your server was internal and it wasn't exposed externally, we would never see any SolarWinds components with it because it wasn't externally exposed. So that's one thing. So if you ran SolarWinds, you need to run this to look at your local host names, your DNS of everything that you guys have that's internal, and see if there's a certificate outside. If there is, you have to investigate it. Here's the one for parentpay.local, because that's the only way you can tell if you were potentially compromised, is because it leaks out your internal host names out on the internet on these certificates that are in foreign countries and different places where you probably don't do business, and they were accessing your stuff. So that's why it's important to do that. And you can do it manually one at a time and check them, but this tool is a way for you to bulk do them, that you can instantly tell if you got a hit or not, instead of having to spend a couple days going through this. You saw that within a couple seconds, you had the information. So you either need to panic or not panic, and this is a way to calm the nerves of the organization, your CEO, the board members, everything else, to say, hey, we ran SolarWinds, it wasn't external, great, but we got a hit. So now that we got a hit, we were potentially compromised. We don't know what that is. We don't know what was installed. So the next step is you have to figure out, did the threat actor take anything? Did he install anything? What happened? That's the other aspects you need to look at.
Yes. And so one last quick point, you can, if you're using this tool, you already have your ways you can parse files. This is JSON, so you can clearly use JQ. For the example here, I just am showing that you can quickly ask that question, or that file questions from the command line, and get those responses back. So those are just a couple different ways that you can interact with the data. So I'm gonna go ahead and pop over to the field search. And so this option within the app, what it allows you to do is, yes.
Real quick, one of the folks is asking which text editor is that the MIPS that you're using, text editor?
So are we talking about this?
Yeah, this text editor, yes, which one?
Yeah, this is Visual Studio Code. It's a Microsoft product.
Okay.
And so this is highly extensible with it has an extension store here, so you can go and you can ask it questions like, hey, I want to highlight JSON, and so it will do that. One of the other things, like if you use Yara, it has plugins for Yara, so you can quickly write or read Yara rules. But I would highly recommend. I thought, I used Sublime and Atom and all the other things, and this editor has proven to be, just far and away very, very proficient. The other thing you can do is you can connect to, you can easily connect to remote servers if you have, if you're hosting like code or you're writing anything from that lives on an external server. You can set up SSH,
We're
et cetera,
running
et
low
cetera.
on time, so let's go through
Okay.
and do the field one, and then
Yeah.
I want to see how it connects to MISP, so you can show that
Cool.
functionality.
So if you press the field name and you just you just read the prompt, field name to search, this talks to our SSL certificate field name API endpoint, and there are a ton. And so if you just hit tab, it will go list all those options. Okay. And so I'm just going to pick common name there. Okay. And then you just then you can consider this phase of where you're at exactly where you were with option number 1. And so I'm just going to put in parent pay.local here. And actually, I don't think it was in the common name, was it? Let's just make sure that is issuer common name.
Yeah.
It wasn't there. Maybe that's busted. Let's double check it. Oh, did I pick subject common name before?
That's issuer.
Yeah, so I had the wrong field, so there were no hits there. Okay, so you can see that as a sample, it did kick back and find that SHA of the initial search that we were running, which was right there.
So that's your local host name internally.
Yes.
That's now on the internet where it shouldn't be. It had a remote desktop installed. So one thing that's kind of funny is a few months ago, probably 6 to 9 months ago, I did a workshop where I talked about looking at components like doing a search and finding every remote desktop in the world. And I would go through and show the certificates. And when I show it, I would have .locals in there or different names. And I'm like, why is that? But I never put 2 and 2 together. I never thought anything of it. But I was probably seeing some people that were compromised with the SolarWinds and not know it. And we're finding those certificates that were like in China and other places that had these things showed up. But because the IP addresses were low in number, they were on the top of the list and I was finding them. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is all well and good. I think if you do have other tools, this is a quick way to take all that data and put it in those other tools and help you identify what's going on. One of the tools I really like and that I'm very familiar with and have used during incident responding and during threat hunting and all of those things is a tool called MISP. So if you're not familiar with MISP, I would encourage you to definitely just go Google MISP and look at what that framework is. And that's where we're at right now. What this allows you to do is really just pull in events. This is a big OSINT MISP that I use to pull in data from different feeds like the firehole feeds or like the BDS ban list or whatever, right? So you can use this in 1,000 different ways. I could give a 2-week workshop on the benefits of MISP. But here's how you use MISP and Sunburst Center. So you create an event. So I'm just going to call it RiskIQ Sunburst Hunter internal domain findings. Okay, and you create that event. And what that did was it created this event, and it has nothing in it. We have to populate it, okay? And so what we need is the event ID, which is 10802. So we pick number 4, and it asks for the event ID, which was 10802. When you press enter, and it takes everything that was in the output and it just sent it up to MISP. And so with no domains here, if you refresh this, now you see it's populated with everything that you just found, okay? And from here, I'm not gonna really go to a ton of depth after this, but from here, and it does pull in things that it just, whatever the findings were, right? So you really need to ensure this is validate that these findings are legit. Like this, it thinks parent.pay.local is a file name, right? So you should go check that. But the point is, what you can do is then you can enrich it from here. So you can sit there and you can click the PassiveTotal button, and what that does is it will go and ask our platform, hey, what do you guys know about this? What additional things do you know about this IP address, including historical SSL, who is data? There are a number of different enrichments that you can do. You can also go ask Shodan and VirusTotal and all that good stuff. Depends on how your MISP is set up. But I think this is a really important component to take all of that work that you've done and then be able to put it into context in your environment. If you're using MISP directly as part of your process, you can now you now have an event specific to the question that your boss asked. Hey, do we have anything? And if that answer is a no, then that's great. But like in this case, these related events, this is very important. So this just told me that I have something in my environment that was related to a 2014 event called Rain Scanner, which I don't know what that is, right? So you can see that this Rain Scanner event, these are SHA values. And so at some point, Rain Scanner was using these SHA values to do its work. And so you can go to that event within MISP itself, and you can go get some additional context from that and try to understand, what that was actually doing. So why this is important is because this is a live event directly related to
that breach.
A breach and known malware, and so it will give you that historical context. So that's why I think this is very valuable to pull these in. You can just quickly let you answer these questions and take action.
So Cory, this is great. So you're pulling the thread where you go, okay, I really need to be thorough. I need to be accurate. I need to do this quickly, because if you have a vulnerability and you have an exposure and you have a breach, the time it takes you to figure it out and stop it, you're bleeding, and you don't want to die. You don't want to bleed out. So you have to do these things in such a way where you can easily gather this data, put it into a framework, put it into your process, and be able to work through it and figure out all the full context and answer the question. So for the CEO, you can say, if this was our domain names, hey, yeah, we were breached and we had X number of machines that were shown out there. We're in trouble. We need to activate the team to really go through and thoroughly look at everything. And we might need to re-image boxes. We might need to reload firmware from the manufacturer. There's a lot of stuff you might do, because SolarWinds was in everything. Depending on what modules you had and what was there, they had direct access to those machines, but then they can install whatever they wanted. And so if you have an EDR, you can look to see if anything happened. But SolarWinds had the keys to the castle, and no alarms went off because it was authorized to do it.
Right. That's exactly right.
Yeah. So, hey, thank you, Cory. So I'm going to take back. Are there anything else you want to show?
No, the only thing I'd offer is if you begin using Sunburst Hunter, or I'm sorry, when you begin using it, if you do have issues with it, feel free to reach out to me directly through GitHub. I'd prefer if you guys opened issues and we can work through them. As you can see, I've already had a couple contributors that have fixed some bugs. So You know, it's like I said, that's why the disclaimer existed to begin with. You know, you saw the thing break, but that's just the nature of these, and honestly, the speed in which we can update this and make it better for the community is what's important. So I just, yeah, that's the only thing I toss out there. Feel free to reach out, and I'm always available.
Awesome. Hey, Cory, thank you, and thank you for really helping everyone understand what the problem is and how to solve this out there. Hey,
Sure.
Can everybody see my screen? Okay, my PassiveTotal screen. Am I showing the right screen? That's it. Yeah, I am. Okay. Okay. So one of the things I wanted to do is I wanted to show you. I want to go back and look at the article that we talked about, that we did the role play with in the very beginning. So if we take a look and we go back into PassiveTotal, we're looking at the new interface, the threat intel portal. Okay, and if I type in SolarWinds.
Benjamin, I did have one more thing on the threat intel portal if we have time at the end. Otherwise, okay, I'll just put a link.
Okay, no problem. So I'll make sure that we give you the time at the end. So if we looked at this, the original one that was released that was dealing with the FireEye breach, okay, there were 4 public indicators in here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to open these up in another tab, and then and I'll explain what these are in a quick second. So what happened was when we looked at SolarWinds, we said, hey, if we needed to identify SolarWinds, how can we identify it? And one way that we found was that there was a Google Analytic tracker that if you installed SolarWinds, it used a Google Analytic tracker. And so we saw that there were 2 different ways. It was either uppercase or lowercase. So we had both. And then there was a cookie that was used. And this cookie name was there. The value would be different, but the cookie name was there. And then if we identified SolarWinds, we also had a component already that was identifying that SolarWinds was there, but not the actual version. It was just blanking them together. Okay? And then after this, we were very specific in identifying the versions so then you can know which ones to do. But we had a general component for SolarWinds. And so if you looked at these, and if we looked at this, we would see there's 25 hosts, 23 IP addresses that showed up. If we looked at the other version where it was all lowercase, there were almost 1,000 IP addresses that came up with that Google Analytic code. So these are all things that were publicly available, exposed. When we first published, we saw about 4,000 hosts out there that were publicly exposed. So when you say, oh, 4,000, I'm okay. No, you weren't, because the way that this worked was it would phone home, grab command and control information, go back in and make those actions. So it could be on the inside and it was connecting out. So that's why it's important to check the certificates where a lot of people haven't done that. And then if we looked at the session ID, we're now at 2,000 different ones had that session ID. So each one of these ways of determining this found more. And when we added them all up, it was about 4,000 that were listed. So it's really important for your organizations, and to be safe, you need to go through and check your hostings. You can do it manually. And if you have a lot, it's going to be search each one, and you're going to see if it's there. Or you can run the tool, find out where you have the hits, then go back and look at it and do it all in one fell swoop and be done with it. And if you use MISP, you can import them in and make events and then work through them and take care of them. So Cory, is it something that you want me to just click on, or do you want me to give you access back to do it?
If you don't mind, I'll take access back just for a quick second. I'm not going to.
No problem.
I just want to show.
Doing it right now. Make presenter.
All right. So real quick, if you go to, sorry, the control panel is all over my face. If you go to my GitHub page, another repository I'd like to highlight is the article API. And so just I'll leave, I'll put a link. Actually, I'll do it right now before I forget.
I already threw it in. I already threw those in for you. Everything from your
okay.
In for you.
Okay, cool. So all I wanted to show was the point of this interaction is all it does is it goes out and it pulls down our latest articles. Okay, it just gives them to you in this format and then gives you the GUID. And this short GUID is important because what you can then do is you can extract just the indicators from any article that you want quickly. And so you can also, there's also a download button within the interface itself, but you can, if you are using just programmatically, you can sit there and pull the indicators out very, very quickly. And that's all I wanted to just make sure I mentioned.
Awesome. So I'll take it back.
Okay.
Presenter, show my screen. So Barrett, are there any other questions that we need to address?
Yeah, Benjamin, a couple came in just now. Does everybody have access to the threat articles that you were showing earlier during your role playing?
Yes. So you do have access to the articles, but there's one caveat. If there's enterprise indicators, then those are for the paid customers or the people that are in a trial or using a promo code. So like think of it like when we talked about the original open source intelligence that was published. If threat research, where Cory works, if they went through and found out more indicators and more stuff, those indicators are available to the paid customers. But the articles are there. They're right up about what they think and all that stuff is there. It's just those additional indicators because they went through and did that work. We charge for that.
Got it. Awesome.
One quick point to add to that real fast is
Sure.
there are times where we do for the greater good, like in the case of Ryuk, we took all of that work and we made those public for the greater good.
Yeah. So if we do the article and we do the research, it's free to everybody. But if we're adding on to an existing article from somebody else, that's the piece that you have to buy.
Got it. Okay. Related to the tool Cory was sharing, if I use Cory's tool, do I have to pay for the data?
Well, yes, because you're using the API. So if your account has API access, you can use it until you hit your API limit. So if you're running thousands of queries, then you need to have thousands of API queries, and your key will tell you how many you can run. So Cory, like if I ran a single domain and I ran generally, how many queries did that spider out to in your tool?
It usually doesn't hit more than 100 just in my testing, and that's a given account is that is definitely not a huge hit, but yeah, it's roughly 100 ish.
100 for like if I did a bunch of domain names, or is that with one domain name?
Well, it could do that because of this of the spidering. If it starts with a certificate and it finds 50 host names associated with that certificate, it's going to try to ask a question about each finding in there, each host. So
okay.
So it's I would say it's more in the neighborhood of 10 for a given search for a single search, but
it could go up as much as 100. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Hopefully that answers your question. Okay.
Yeah, I think we can get one more question in before the top of the hour here. What do I need to have from RiskIQ to use these tools?
Okay, so you need a computer, you need an internet connection. Those are two, and then you need to have an account with us. So you can have a community account, you can have the corporate account, you can have a paid account. So once you have access to the data and you have APIs, then Cory's tool's free. He published that for free, open source that people can use and leverage that to answer questions quickly on mass scale. That tool is free. You download it, you install it like he showed, but then you need that API key in order to access the data and bring it in. From the interface, you see that you get around 20 queries for the free accounts if you're not in a trial, or you get 200 queries on average for like a free email account in the system per day. So that's enough to do a couple investigations. If you're doing a lot of pivoting and stuff, it could you could burn through it, but that's what you get.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, guys. And we're right at the top of the hour here, so that's all the time we have questions for live today. We'll follow up with those who asked questions that we weren't able to get to live. You see on the slide here from Benjamin, you can always reach out to success@riskiq.net with any additional questions. Thank you to Benjamin, Cory, and Michael for a great workshop, and thank you all for attending. Everyone have a great rest of your day.
And if you need help investigating your own stuff, please let us know. Reach out to us.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
Take care. Thank you.
Bye-bye.